All right, we are back, and this is part two. We're going to be making the materials, and we're going to be lighting this, showing a little bit of compositing tricks, and we'll be on our way. Let's chop into it. So we are here in geometry nodes. Go ahead and just pick up where we left off. I'm going to highlight these and hit G. And because this is geometry nodes, we can't just go and throw materials onto it. We need to set up some nodes in order to tell it, where to throw it. And because we essentially have three separate parts to this, we have the wires, we have the spheres, and we have these flat portions, we're going to need three different materials. Or we can throw the same material on all three of them, but still there are three separate parts. First off, this guy needs to be shade smooth. So let's find, looks like it's this wire right here. So set shade smooth. All right. So first thing I want to do is go over here to the material section and hit the plus icon 3 times. And then you can click new on each of them. And then on each one of them, just title it based on each of these. So this first one, I'm just going to call it. And the order, the hierarchy here does not matter. And then we're going to call this one wire and this one flat. Now we need to go ahead and put it here. So I know because I'm seeing the icosphere and the instance on points, this is the ball. So we're going to get a set material node. I'm going to hit Shift D and put it on each line. Oh, come back. Put it on each line. So this top one needs to be the ball material. Because I'm seeing mesh to curve, curve to mesh, all of that, I know this is the wire frame. And then of course, subsequently, this would be the flat one. So now we have all three materials ready to go, which means now we can head over to shading. And like I talked about in the original, the beginner first, I'm trying to find the word here, the intro shading tutorial, we talked about slots. So make sure that you are in the slot that says flat. That is going to be the first guy that we create, because then we're going to be pulling from that for the rest of the materials. So let's go ahead and make him metallic and then make him pretty dark, something like this, because that will go better with our lighting that we're going to apply to it later. So here's what we're going to do. I'm actually, just to save ourselves, I'm going to kill this window and create a new one here. And then we're going to go from this to shader editor and I'm going to hit in. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to be creating two completely different materials, and then we're going to combine them together with the texture, masking them together. And that's because I wanted to, one, make a very cool sci-fi looking material, but also show you how to create a bunch of stuff into one thing and then combine them onto a surface and just make it look awesome. That's what we're going to do. Let's go ahead and design the first one, and I want to create a galvanized steel. So that is going to be in our roughness to make it look like the galvanized steel. So we need to first get in a color ramp and plug that into the roughness. And then we're going to hit Shift A and get in a Voronoi texture, because I know from experience, the Voronoi texture has that base galvanized steel looking pattern. We're going to hit Control T and use the object coordinate. And then we're going to plug, in this case, I don't want any gradients. I just want a flat pattern. We're going to use color. And like I said, I already know that the Voronoi texture has that galvanized steel pattern, right? It's just there by default, which is that this kind of an example of make sure you are very aware of what is in each of your nodes and what they can do, so that it's going to, I could just spend hours explaining every single little detail. I highly encourage you go in and play with them. Press every single button on these nodes to really get comfortable with them. That's why you can make, thousands and thousands of unique materials just within procedural materials, because they offer so much just here. So with that being said, we're going to go to the Minkowski pattern, and then we're going to bring down that exponent to create that kind of random cell looking thing, which creates, if we scale it up, our galvanized steel material. So you can go ahead and look at references if you want to see, how you want, because there is slight variations in galvanized steel patterns. This one works quite well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the white portion of the roughness and I'm going to crunch it in here. And then I'm going to take the black portion, crunch it in here. So now we have this, and let's take the black portion, which is this very shiny part, and we're going to bring it up. Both of these materials, we're going to have very, very rough materials today. And then we can take this white one and bring it in. so that we have this. So now we have this going on. And I would say even that is still not quite as rough as I want it to be. So now we have this going on. It looks really, really nice. A couple things though. I don't like how sharp this edge is. So what I can do is go from F1 to smooth F1 and then bring that, not roughness, sorry, bring that smoothness in. So 0 smoothness is back to the original. So if I zoom in here, bring that smoothness up to blur those lines to make it look a little bit more organic. And then the last thing I want to do when I was studying my references, they do have a little bit of distortion to them, and that's quite easy to do. I'm going to highlight these guys. I'm going to hit G to move them. Let's throw a noise texture right here to create some of that distortion. So of course, that's too much distortion because this noise texture is completely affecting it. So let's go ahead and get a mix color, plop it here, and then I'm going to bring the vector right into B. And so this will be like our bypass node here. So I'm going to bring our detail to 12. So now we have this, and you can add more. So what I can do is just bring it in a little bit like this to create some of that distortion. And now we have our galvanized steel. The last thing I want to do on this particular material is just make it look a little bit more sci-fi looking with a bump node. I want to play with bump on each of these materials. So I'm going to add the bump node, bring our distance to 0.1. That's really the default each time. And let's get another Voronoi, and then plug in that mapping into the vector. And let's just plug color straight into height. But I don't want to use Minkowski. I actually want to use Manhattan because I like the sci-fi texture that creates for me. And then we're going to go here to F1, not smooth F1. And then it's really still scaled to be like him. So we're going to do 5, maybe even smaller than that, something like 1.5. So now we have this really cool sci-fi pattern on top of our already galvanized steel. So there we go. We've created material number 1. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this principled node and I'm going to hit Shift D, and I'm going to plug him into surface. Now we have a new blank surface. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this bump node and I'm going to hit Shift D and bring it down, and I'll plug him into the normal. Just save him for later. Now I'm actually going to highlight, hit G to move it down. Let's go ahead and get in a color ramp, plug this into the roughness, and I just want to create a standard roughness. So we're going to get a noise texture for that. And then we're just going to get our own, actually no, we don't need to get our own mapping setup. We can use this one. And I'm going to plug it here, and the noise texture goes here. So now we have this guy. Again, I want to create very rough materials. So first I'm going to bring my detail to 12. I'm going to bring my roughness up quite a bit. But to create what I'm talking about is the glossiness here. So we're going to bring him in here, and we're going to bring him in here. And then him, I don't know why I said him like that. We're going to bring him up. And then this is just way too rough on the pure white. So bring it down a little bit. And then maybe bring him up some more. I want it to be quite rough. Really nice. Maybe bring it up, because I already know kind of where lighting is going to go with this. So bring it like this. Okay, cool. We've created a very rough metal that we're now going to throw a brick texture on there. So BRI, let's do a, sorry, BRI, brick texture. There we go. Plug the vector into the vector, and plug, we are going to need, will we? Well, we'll need a color ramp later. We'll just plug color straight into height. Now we have this very flat, so I want to bring my mortar smoothness all the way to 1. And then on this bump, we're going to bring it down till it's not, black, right? Because it's really pushing it to be as strong as possible. So it's essentially like clipping it. So we just need to bring it down to something reasonable. Now we have all of these bricks. And the reason why you wanted to use bricks, because when you bring this offset over to the left, it really starts to make kind of this sci-fi looking thing. And you can distort it later if you want. But now we have this, and what I want to do, and the reason why I say it creates this sci-fi looking bit, is once we introduce some emission right here, so we're going to give it a strength of, say, like 15. We're going to get a new color ramp, And we're going to plug color into the factor and then plug this into color. Now we see this. You can bring your color ramp in. But just in case maybe your blender was wonky, I'm going to flip the color ramp. If we bring it in like this, you're going to see this outline. Just go ahead and just flip your color ramp so that it fixes that problem. I don't know if that's going to happen for everybody, but it did at one point with a different system. So now we have that. Let's go ahead and establish the green color that we want to use. And then every time I introduce color, I'm reminded, oh, I'm in AGX. And I'm not going for realism right now. So you can click on the camera, go all the way down, go from AGX to filmic, and then none to very high contrast. There we go. Now we just get vibrant, beautiful color. Of course, your color space is your preference. All right, so now we have this, right? We now have our two materials. Here they are, these two. So what we'll need to do to mix them is to get a mix shader, and then we'll plug them. So I'm going to plug him into the bottom, and we'll plug him into the top. Of course, the order here doesn't entirely matter. So now what this mix texture is doing is combining them evenly, right? So if I bring him to the left, we're seeing this top material, this one that we created first, and we bring it over to the right, we're seeing this. So at 0.5, which is the default, they're just existing on top. We have to mask them to say which one are we going to reveal. So we are going to do that with this factor socket. So we're going to go ahead and get a color ramp, plug that here, and we're going to go ahead and get in a Voronoi texture. And then we're going to get this mapping, and we hit G and move him up, and then plug vector into vector. And then again, we want solid color. We want no gradients, because if there is a gradient, that means it's going to mix them together, right? I just want solid black and white. So we'll plug color into the color ramp. And then if I go ahead, once this loads, you'll notice it's still not behaving right. Still not. You can kind of see it, but they're still mixing together. So if I hit Control-Shift-Click on the color ramp, we'll notice we're not getting black-white. We're getting a range of gray. And so that is going to make some of them blend, right? We don't want them blending. We just want to create a black and white mask. So the way that's going to happen is with a constant offset. And then once you bring it in, we're going to do 0.5 to be precisely in the middle. Now we're getting pure black-white mask that if I go ahead to see on this mix shader, hit Control-Shift-Click, now we're getting no crossover, right? Pure masking. So what I want to do is go to a Manhattan pattern, and we are going to just make it really big. Give it a scale of like 1, and so now we have these two materials hanging out. And I say I want more or less of each, so you can play with that. Now you have this. So now let's go ahead and create our wireframe material and our sphere material to wrap up this. First, I want to make these a little darker, just slightly. I'm just preparing for the worst, really. So what I want to do, we created this, this roughness here on this bottom one. So I just want to go ahead and highlight the noise texture and the color ramp, Control-C. And then right here in the slot, let's go to the ball. Let's work on the ball next. So make it metallic, make it a bit darker, and then hit Control-V, and that'll paste in these new nodes. And then on this guy, I'm gonna hit Control-T to get that object coordinate, and then plug that into roughness. So now we have a little bit of roughness on this guy. You can see it working there. I'm gonna make it a little bit more rough. Just crunch it in like that. And then maybe, I don't know. He's fine. We're good. We're good there. Now let's go ahead and animate a little bit of emission popping around on these spheres. So we'll drop down the emission guy. And then we'll go back to the flat one, and we'll pull. I just want to pull this color ramp. So I'm going to hit Control-C, go back to ball, Control-V, and we'll plug him right into color, and then our strength of 15. And then there they are in all their blissful glory. We'll get a noise texture. What I want is to just some of them to turn off and on, like blink, 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 blink. And actually, because I want to animate that, we'll use the wave texture because that'll make looping that animation far, far easier just with this phase offset. We'll go ahead and get in a object info so that we can use the wave texture as a way to randomize the glow, but it's not actually like For example, if I plug this into here now, we are going to see, you can see the wave texture, right? So what I'm going to do is we're going to go to rings and we're going to go X to spherical to get this looking right. And so there we have that. And then I'm going to bring my distortion up to 50. That's what it looks like on our sphere. I don't want that. I don't want a pattern. I just want values of light and dark. And so that is going to use this pattern if we use random. The object info recognizes these are all just instances of spheres. And then we'll just bring this color ramp in and then we play with the phase offset and it'll blink them around. I don't really know. I don't have a technical explanation as how this object info node truly works. All I know is that's what it does. And then it'll use, so if I go to 0, you can kind of see it's moving in a wave. Keep it at 50 on the distortion if you want to keep more of a random, unpredictable motion. So there we go. We have this guy. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight these two right here. I'm going to hit Control C. And let's go to wire. Let's make this guy metallic. Now we're going to edit the wireframe. We're going to make it dark, just like the rest of them. Pop down the emission. I'm going to hit Control V and paste in this color ramp, which I didn't really do it right. We're going to go back to ball. I want these two guys, Control C. And we're going to go to wire, Control V. It's not pasting in oh well, we'll run with it. So let's just plug him into color. We'll bring him over like this, give it a strength of 15, wave texture, and then hit Control T this time and use that object coordinate and we'll plug color into color ramp. So now we have all of this moving around. We're going to go from bands to rings, X to spherical, and then we'll bring that scale to like 0.1. And then we can bring this in. And you'll notice if we play with the offset, we now have that wave moving in and out, right? So we'll bring our distortion up to say, I don't know, we'll do 50. And now it has this really cool look. I have one issue with it. I don't like how harsh it gradients. Like that's how much gradient we have from metal to glow. How do we fix that? We can go, we have linear. Now we could use ease, which is a slightly smoother gradient. You can see now it's a bit bigger. We go from ease to linear, see that? But there is one that is the ultimate gradient, which is B-spline. And you can see B-spline is a really big gradient, and that is what I'm looking for. And then we'll just bring it all the way in like this. And then now we have this animation doing what it does. And I think it's really cool. What I'm going to do on scale, I'm going to do 0.03. I want it to be really, really wide on that animation. So now we are ready to go ahead and start some lighting and then animating. Right now he's looping this way, but we do need to loop these materials, but we'll do that in a little bit. I want to get you onto some lighting really quick. So we have this. So let's go ahead and set up our camera. So let's say make it right here. I'm going to hit Control A. I'm going to hit Shift A and get in a camera, Control Alt 0, snap that to view, then I'm going to hit G to move it around, I'm going to N to move that thing. We have this, I don't like that there's a huge gap here. Whenever I'm going to lighting it, when I go to light it, I'm going to want something here, at least in the center of the view. So I'm going to click on this guy. We're going to go back to geometry nodes. I'm going to hit 0 to go to my camera view. And let's go all the way to the beginning to the very first random value, and your seed will tell you, you know, where we have things. So I'm going to go ahead and click around till I really like it. I think this is nice. And then maybe bring that probability down a little bit. So now we have something pretty cool looking. We can go here to our view and say, all right, this is what it looks like. I think it's pretty nice. I think it's pretty sweet. Now, I want to point out something major here. If I zoom in and I press play, notice our texture is moving, right? If I go here to a different, maybe something like this, our texture is actually moving. You can see everything is moving. That's pretty ugly. So this is a major thing to notice. And how do we fix that? Because this is geometry nodes. It's editing those textures in 3D space. So let's go back to shading, and we're going to go to the flat one, which is all of these guys. See that? That's pretty bad. Notice that? That is because these textures that create these patterns are 3D textures. So it's moving. Imagine this whole space is covered in texture and it's moving up, and that's how it's picking the pattern. We don't want it to do that. We want it to treat it like it's 2D. And that's the best way to remember that we don't want a 3D texture. We want a flat 2D texture. How we do that? Well, it's a bit of a meticulous thing. And this is more of just like a pre-planning situation. Every node that says 3D, switch it over to 2D. So it's very simple. 2D, 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 2D. So a couple of them. Did we get them all? Did we get them all? We got them all. And so now if I press play, everything is solid. It kept the same patterns. It kept the same look. We didn't lose any design, but now everything is staying stable. So whenever you see that happening in geometry nodes and you want to keep it flat, and it's very convenient because this is a flat thing, the model is flat. It's convenient for us. Now it's going to stay solid. It's not going to move. So that's really, really important. Rarely do we use 2D, but in these cases we do. It is going to prevent us from using 4D, so we can't animate it randomly. That's okay. In this case, we are fine with that. Now let's go back to the layout and we can start to light this scene. So in my camera, what I want to do is click on the little green camera icon, click on the camera in the outliner. Perspective, we're going to go to orthographic, and then maybe we can go something like this. Angle, Control-Alt-0, snap it to view, then I'm going to hit G. And then I want this displacement to be a bit more dramatic, so we can go back to geometry nodes. And where are we at? It's going to be our multiply node. It's going to strengthen our displacement. Then we can go back to layout and go, okay, cool. Maybe we bring this guy up. Now we have this going on. It looks great. Let's add some lights. So I'm going to go here to the cycles preview. We're in cycles, and what we can do is here in the world, bring your world down to black, and then let's go ahead and introduce a single point light. And then we can just go ahead and see, where is he at? He's right, oops. So he's right here. I'm gonna hit G and move him up. So now he's starting to light the scene. We can go here to the settings and type in a power of, say, 3000. So he's super bright. But he's here. I want him to be kind of up here, casting light straight down this way. And then it's super harsh. I want it to be smoother, softer lighting. And also, I don't like that this is pure black. I want to add some volume to this to really make it look cool. And so the way we can do that is click on the world right here on volume, which is fog. We can go here to volume. On none, we can go to principled volume and then bring that density significantly far down. Something like this might look good. I'm at 0.02. And then on my point light, we can go back, give it kind of a nice blue thing. This is, I guess I wouldn't call it my signature, but it is something that I do all the time. I love the way it looks. And so now we have this. And then again, the light is really harsh and dramatic. I don't really like that. And so what I can do is click on the point light, and he's way up here. What I can do is bring that radius up, and we get a much bigger, smoother light. And then now we have something much better here, and it's still dramatic enough, but also fills out our scene really, really well. Something like this. So now that we're here, I want to go ahead and hit the render button and add some compositing to this. There's one more little edit though. I think these spheres here are too big. So we're going to go back to geometry nodes, click on this guy, and let's go here to the icosphere, and then radius. We're going to bring that radius down. Okay, I'm ready to render. I am sitting here at 300 samples. I'm happy with that. I'm going to render that image. All right, so this is my finished image. What we're going to do is head over to the compositor. I'm going to hit the period key. Well, first we need to click use nodes, and then I'm going to hit the period key to reveal our composite node. And then to view, we need to get a viewer node, and then we'll plug this into here, and then I'm gonna hold down shift and right click to combine them so that whatever composite nodes we throw onto this, it's not only going to be able to be viewed in the composite, but actually go into the animation. So what I want to do is first get in a hue saturation value node. I want to show you that you can change some cool stuff in post. A lot of times, if I'm like, I like the color, but I want to see what else I can do, I will render my view, render my image, and then play with my hue. And in this case, when I was designing this, I was like, oh, this orange looks super sweet. And so I'm going to go ahead and fit this. This orange looks really nice. I like it. And then let's go ahead and and then we can bring that saturation up. And specifically, I like what the saturation looks like. When I bring it up, and it's going to take a second to load. When I start to bring up my saturation, it makes the orange, it gives the orange this really cool effect. And say, hey, let's go ahead and get a different angle on the displacement here. So I re-rendered it to give it a different angle. So if we start to bring this saturation up, the way, I don't know, I just like the way this looks. This is really kind of a personal preference, but we are learning art, and I think this just looks really cool and artistic, and the way it makes the emission specifically look, I really love it. Now let's go ahead and get in a glare node right here, and then we can go from streaks to fog glow, and then you can bring that mix down a little bit if it's a little too intense for you. And then now we can go to the rendering button and see, okay, this is our finished piece. It looks super cool. Last thing we need to do is just animate all of our glowing pieces to finish this off. So let's go back to shading and let's do that. So let's go here to the, let's do the wireframe first. Let's go and get up a timeline. So now we have our timeline. We can go back to frame 0. And then of course the wave texture is animate that with the phase offset. So I'm going to hit I at frame 0, of course, go to the end. And I don't know what the value needs to be here. So we'll do 6 asterisk pi, enter, and then we'll do that. Okay, so that's really, really slow. So we'll do 12, maybe 12 asterisk pi, enter, and then hit I on the keyframe. There we go. Now we're actually starting to see it move. We like that. And then let's go here to the ball slot and then animate these balls moving around. We'll do the same speed. We'll see if that looks good. I'll hit I. I want to make sure we're at frame 0, of course. And then we'll do 12 asterisk pi, hit I. Yeah, I like that. I like how they're moving around. You can see them moving around here. So there we go. We are totally done. Maybe I'll go back into the Geometry Nodes workspace and delete. I don't really like how flat that is, so we'll delete a couple more. Maybe where's the other separate? Here we go. Maybe we'll do like that, or maybe we'll play with our seed. Oh, that looks cool. And then let's go ahead and render this out and just see this finished, all done. And there we go. We are finished with this scene. It looks cool. We learned some compositing. We learned a bunch of node stuff. Built a really cool Plexus environment thing, whatever. Motion graphics. That's it. This one just looks super cool. I love the realistic look of it. It's awesome. I think there's just so much to learn here and apply to other animations, and I love it. So there you go. That's the end of part 2. Hope you got some stuff out of that, and we will move on to the next lesson.